This is AIPS. This is AIPS Seminar, the cost of reporting while female. My name is Jura Ozmec, and I will moderate this third session. In the first two sessions, we had excellent panelists, but also very good your opinions and your questions. So let's continue in a good mood. Today, we will talk about pay gap. The journalism industry is notoriously inconsistent with pay, and women often bear the cost of this disparity. Job offers are often based on salary history, and there's little transparency around pay within new organizations. Experts say pay transparency is key to reducing the wage gap. So soon we will start. But please let me remind you that you should stay mute all the time unless you get a note from us. Do you allow us to unmute you? It will happen if you raise the hand virtually, if you want to ask or just comment anything about the team. You will have 3 minutes of time, and I'm sure you know all about that. To raise the hand, you should click a blue hand button in the participant section on this side of your screen, but you already know that. Please speak slow because of our interpreters. Everything is translated on 4 languages: English, Arabian, French, and Spanish, through the application Interprefy on your smartphones. Use earphones for that. It's the best way. Now, the introduction and welcome words from our AIPS president, Mr. Gianni Merlo.
The beginning is always difficult of every session because we are waiting people, people sometimes are late, sometimes are also the connection that are not so perfect. I think that the big miracle was that we have collected all the work together in these 3 sessions, and this is very important. I wanted, in the meantime, we are still waiting people that are rushing now inside. Remember, you have seen during the waiting that we sent a message regarding our award with the video. The awards are very important, right? Because we are investing in culture, as I told the first time, and the award is a kind of symbol for us to show to the world that sport journalism is very important. The sport journalism has the possibility to create culture. And for this reason, I hope that many of you will also participate in this award. Because it's participating that we give strength to our movement, to our profession. And I guess that I want to tell you that last year we have received 1,754 submissions in 8 categories. It's an incredible big number. But we can do more because the quality of the work that we have received were very high. And after we made also some ranking regarding the continent, the country. And we must not be shy. We must show the work that we are doing because it's very important, exactly as it is this seminar. It's the first time that as IPS we organize a seminar. We are very satisfied because we have seen the result. We have seen also that people is enthusiastic to participate, to have the possibility to share their opinion with top colleagues around the world. Even today we have really 4 women of really great level, and it would be very interesting, even for me, to follow your question, your new idea, because even this title, Big Gap, is important, because in every country, everybody is discussing about this problem between the salary of men and women. Step by step, we are reaching equality, but we have to work together at this point. And we must not be shy or sometimes selfish and to think only to our problem, to our small garden. Our garden is the world, and we have to continue on this way. So let's begin. Jura, the ball is to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Our first panelist today is Rika Roy. She has spent 21 years in the sports media industry, currently works with New Delhi Television as deputy editor and anchors a sports show called Turning Point. In the past, she has also covered politics, legal and current affairs as an on-field reporter and broadcaster. Rika, please.
Well, thank you very much. At the outset, let me tell you, it's a huge privilege and honor for me to connect with my fellow journalists from three continents, America, Africa, and Australia. Well, when people often fail to say my name, I tell them take the first three letters out of America and the first two letters out of Africa, and you have me, Rika. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Gianni Marlowe, the president of AIPS, for having me on this platform. Thank you very much, Mr. Sabanaikan, who has seen me grow from a rookie journalist at the age of 14 to a professional that I am today. He is a former president of the Sports Journalists Federation of India and is India's representative to AIPS. Well, I have been a journalist for 21 years in the contracted pool. And the reason I bring up being a part of contracted pool is because I started as a freelance journalist at the age of 14. Well, in one of my interviews during those days, the former cricket captain of Australia and commentator Ian Chappell jokingly remarked about me being a child labor. 7 years later, when I was no longer a child labor, I was absorbed in the workforce. Now, I have covered 5 Cricket World Cups and 5 Champions trophies. These are all cricket tournaments, 3 Olympic Games and 3 Commonwealth Games as an anchor, and several other sports events where India has taken part. These days, I don't just report, I train and mentor young professionals as well. Now, growing up in a family of sports fanatics, I fell in love with Olympic Games when I saw Nadia Comaneci in 1980. I was not destined to play in the Olympic Games, but my dream is to enable a girl to finish at the Olympic podium. As a mentor, I'm working towards that. Talking about present day pay gap in India, I shall have to talk to you about where women in India are today, their contribution to workforce, journalism, and to sports journalism. Now, 97% of Indian women, mark that number, 97% of Indian women work in informal sector. India ranks 120 among 131 countries in female labor force participation rate. Rates of gender-based violence remain very, very high. At 17% of GDP, the economic contribution of Indian women is less than half the global average, comparing unfavorably to the 40% in China, for instance. India, though, is the fastest growing trillion-dollar economy in the world and the 5th largest overall. The country could boost its growth further if more women can join the workforce. Now, in 2014, there were 27% women in India's labor force, and that has fallen to 24% now. But all of this data is based on data that was collected pre the coronavirus pandemic. We are still going through the storm. The pandemic is raging, and it's changing our lives every day in many, many ways. Women in journalism have been hit harder than in 2008. Even before the pandemic, for the last 3 years now, the industry has seen a slump. The newsrooms across the country have been bleeding. Almost every month for the past 3 years, I have been hearing of colleagues being rendered redundant. Some were first-timers in the job, some very, very senior professionals. For the last decade, India's newspaper industry has stood out as a rare beacon of hope for the print media, which has seen a sharp decline in readership in the West. According to the Indian Readership Survey, the overall readership of newspapers had grown from 407 million readers in 2017 to 425 million readers at the end of the first quarter of 2019. Now, the coronavirus is threatening to do what the Great Recession of 2008 couldn't, deal a crippling blow to the industry. Now, I have been speaking to some of my female colleagues who say that the pages that are most likely to employ women, culture, feature, society, environment, entertainment were the first to be knocked out. Publications such as Business Standard, India Ahead News, and Indian Express have notified employees of salary cuts. Employees in Quint have been forced to go on leave without pay, while others were forced to take a pay cut. Some publications have asked their teams to hand in resignations. For instance, there is an organization called News Nation that laid off its 15 journalists from the English digital news team. Now, most women journalists today who are committed to paying bills are living in a culture of fear and silence, afraid to speak out against organizations lest they get the axe too. When the fear of being axed is real, pay gap is not a subject that's brought up with the employers. It is about surviving now, and it is about survival of the fittest. Traditionally, women are bad negotiators, and a pandemic is not the time of negotiation. There are also instances where sports journalists have been moved into other jobs, other roles like production and post-production in TV businesses, even asked to perform roles without their consent to justify their salary. This is because the employer is scared of implications of sending them out and reporting. What if they catch COVID? The employer then will have to answer several questions to the government. So many women without consent are put in roles that are completely alien to them. While it is good to hear that a pandemic is time for reskilling or to be multi-skilled, and I am never against any woman adding to her skill set, it is another thing to learn something from scratch and perform in a stressful scenario where male colleagues often find ways to tell you you're not good enough. And this is causing a huge mental, emotional, and psychological stress on individuals. In best of times, around 3 years back, we conducted a survey across newsrooms in India, in digital and in regional and national languages, to try and find out how many women sports journalists are there. And you will be surprised, the figure that we reached was 66. Now, I do not have a male to female ratio for print and TV newsrooms, while in digital, there are many more women, but in TV, the numbers have shown a progressive decline. Until 2017, I worked in a team that had 10 sports journalists. Today, I'm the only one. Rise in production costs, demands of the news business, pressure from advertisers have pushed sports to back burner. Also, the pandemic has dealt a heavy blow. In many cases, the policymakers are not invested in careers of individuals. They want us to fit into certain roles and not for us to define our roles and perform them to perfection. While the need of the hour is innovation, for that to happen and for Indian journalists to shun mediocrity, employers need to become enablers. Sports may be at a pause, but not the stories. The stories can be told nevertheless. It is the freedom to tell stories fearlessly which has gone missing during the time of the pandemic. Now, Indian society doesn't allow you to fail. The pressure is right from the start to succeed because there are so many people. Remember, 1.3 billion people in India and so few jobs. So for a woman to make a mark in a man's world like sports journalism, she needs to be better than a man each day of her life. At times, even that is not good enough. It isn't just about making the breakthrough, but holding on to your position by performing every day is what counts. Perhaps in this time of the pandemic, there is a need for us to actively mentor young professionals who can then make significant contributions once the pandemic is over. How long will the virus rule our lives? None of us know that. We don't have any predictions. My idea is till a vaccine is found, and sports might take that much time to resume in full swing. But journalists have to survive. Young professionals with a passion for sports, with a passion for writing, have to find their way in. They have to find their feet in journalism. But let me tell you, my dear journalists, people of my tribe, that the ones who will be hired post the pandemic are the ones who are multi-skilled, not just a writer, not just an anchor. Employers will hire people who will tell stories from start to finish. Shoot, script, voice, edit, put out podcasts, use your social media to put the stories out to many more people. This pandemic is forcing us to raise our bar and to put pressure on the employers to hire or give us raises. When I began as a journalist, as a sports journalist, in fact, I had to be the best man for the job. Today, to survive, I have to be the best performer in the role. That is how much the industry has changed. Being multi-skilled is the order of the day. So I am mentoring my fellow young professionals, even young athletes, actively by partnering with several initiatives like the Women in News and Sports program run by Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Gagan Narang Sports Promotion Foundation, and Aspire for Her. Before I end, I have to quote one of the favorite quotes that I have read from a favorite author of mine, Haruki Murakami, a modern master of magic realism and mind-bending metaphysical mischief. He says in his book, Kafka on the Shore, sometimes fate is like a small sandstorm that keeps changing directions. You change direction, but the sandstorm chases you. You turn again, but the storm adjusts. Over and over, you play this out like some ominous dance with death just before dawn. And you really will have to make it through that violent metaphysical symbolic storm, no matter how metaphysical or symbolic it might be. Make no mistake about it. It'll cut through flesh like 1,000 razor blades. People will bleed, you will bleed too. Hot, red blood. You will catch the blood in your hands, your own blood and the blood of others. And once the storm is over, you won't even remember how you made through it, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure that it is really over. But one thing is certain, when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what a storm is about. This pandemic is a storm which we all need to walk through and emerge stronger, achieve higher once it's over. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Rika. I'm pretty sure that this storm will finish at least soon. Thank you very much, Rika. And now we are going to Australia. Rosalind Morris worked for The Australian, Daily Telegraph, Daily Mirror, Sunday Telegraph, and Sunday Mirror newspapers. The move to television saw her join a large regional network where she was bureau chief and on-air reporter or presenter. She took the role, the AIPS Secretary General, from 2009 to 2016. And it is my great pleasure to say, Rosalind, welcome.
Hi there, everybody. It's great to be here. I wanted to say, when I was listening to Rika's roundup at the end, it sort of reminded me more like having a baby, childbirth, than a storm, because the blood, the pain, everything, but in the end you forget about it and move on. So thank you for that. It was really quite interesting. I'm going to sort of be a bit drier than Rika, because I've focused really on stories and anecdotes and a few statistics on the gender pay gap. Workplace gender equality is achieved when people are able to access and enjoy the same rewards, resources, and opportunities, regardless of gender. I'd also like to add, regardless of race or creed. Just how does gender inequity manifest in today's media industry? Surprisingly, it's not all about money. I'll start with what might seem a very trivial example from the late 1970s, when I was a 19-year-old cadet newspaper journalist in a very small country town in regional Australia. My job from the outset involved writing all manner of articles, taking and developing photos, producing local rugby league and horse racing supplements for the newspaper, driving the paper to the printers 3 hours away, and delivering stacks of papers to newsagents on the way back north. All of this, can you imagine, without a mobile phone or even a computer? They were the dark ages. My boss tasked me with calling a significant radio station in the nearest regional city each afternoon to dictate articles that I had written to copy takers for use in the next morning's news bulletins. I felt very important doing this. It never occurred to me that he was being paid quite handsomely for my work. I found this out many years later and never let it happen again. Throughout my career working as a TV, radio and newspaper journalist in Australia, I was a member of the Australian Journalists Association and covered by an award that dictated salaries according to experience for both men and women. Now known as the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance, the broad-based union still goes into bat for journalists and photographers. While I've been fortunate enough never to have been paid less than any man of the same experience, I know there are others among us who are paid significantly less. And I know that there are lots of you tuning in tonight, and I hope to hear from you because we really want to hear your stories about discrimination and the gender pay gap. I decided to prepare this presentation by collecting various anecdotal examples of gender and pay discrimination from my colleagues around the world. I'm not focusing on on-air personalities and senior high-profile journalists because they generally negotiate the contract themselves, saying also that most of the women who do this are paid less. Australia's national broadcaster, the ABC, as our colleague Tracy Holmes will testify, pays men and women according to the levels of experience by what's known as a pay band. This is reviewed annually, so in fact you could be doing the exact same job as the male producer sitting in the radio station, in the radio studio next to you, but he's being paid more because he's been there longer and ideally should be more experienced. This works both ways with men and women. There shouldn't be a discrepancy. The problem is the entrenched male-dominated hierarchy where men flourish and women's careers and thus remuneration remain stagnant. In too many cases, more qualified women are overlooked for promotions and pay rises in favour of men. And it's not just the pay gap or lack of opportunities. Men often ride on the coattails of women's work and take the credit. I'm sure you can all give us a story about that. But here's an example from a young female journalist I spoke to this week. These are her words. I was taken off television coverage of a breaking news story because a senior editor in the Metro newsroom wanted a young and inexperienced male journo to get experience and practice, despite it being my story and my patch. Whether that was sexism at play or just pure favoritism, I don't know. That same male journalist got his name on the byline of the online story, despite doing none of the reporting. A female colleague and I were the ones door knocking, cold calling community members, interviewing them, transcribing interviews and writing up the story as it developed. Tough work as journalists, especially when the story involves several deaths in a very small community. 2 young women were set out to do the tough, emotional, sensitive work, and not that public credit is ever why we do the job. A young man was given the credit and subsequent opportunities that arose from it. Now, I know that that young man has since been transferred to a capital city newsroom on the coattails of those 2 young girls. Like many other countries, particularly in the developed world, Australia has a workplace gender equality agency charged with promoting and improving gender equality. 2 of the principal responsibilities covered by the Workplace Gender Equality Act of 2012 are to promote and improve gender equality, including equal remuneration between men and women in employment and in the workplace, and to support employers to remove barriers to the full and equal participation of women in the workplace. The most recent figures released by the WGEA reflect a national gender pay gap of almost 14%. which translates to around $242.90 a week. I've researched the gender and opportunity pay gap by speaking to many colleagues, young and not so young, from around the world, both male and female. Does it surprise you that female journalists in such diverse countries as Iran, Indonesia, Azerbaijan, Lithuania, New Zealand, and Ireland are paid the same as their male counterparts? In Azerbaijan, for example, as in every field, I'm told, women working in sports and media receive the same salary and bonuses as their male counterparts and have the same rights. In Indonesia, female journalists are paid the same based on a grade system, not by gender. However, some countries don't provide the same insurance and other benefits to female employees as their male counterparts, thus creating a significant disparity. I'm told Iranian journalists and those working for sports federations are paid the same, but women face the age-old barrier of a male-dominated workplace with little opportunity for career advancement, thus less opportunity to earn more. Maybe our colleague Mariam Majid, a photographer, very well known from Iran, who I see is here, can add something a little bit later to that. I've got a story from Oceania that also reflects discrimination against people of colour, not just gender. It's a bit long-winded, I'll try and make it brief. This is the women speaking to me. When I was approached by a major sports body, I won't name it, to be their manager in Samoa, they offered me, so this is a woman from Samoa, they offered me the salary and benefits, same salary and benefits as my Australian counterpart. I accepted the offer. 2 weeks out from when I was going to sign the new contract, I received a text update telling me the contract was ready and just needed my signature. Right at the end of the message was tacked on another paragraph that said the salary had been reduced by 20%. And if I didn't take it, they'll send someone else to take over the role. Well, I guess you can imagine what I thought. I was pretty angry, disappointed, and obviously feeling extremely discriminated against. This was also during the time that some of you might remember the hockey scandal was taking place in New Zealand. It took me around 10 minutes to compose myself, and I texted back that I quit. The organisation just discriminated me based on the fact that I'm a person of colour, a Samoan, and on top of it, a woman. A week later, they offered her the job again at the initial wage. So did the organisation decide to decrease the initial offer by 20% because they thought they could save a few dollars by manipulating a person of colour or manipulating a woman, or both? The former Soviet state Moldova is still in the dark ages when it comes to equality in pay and opportunity. I'm told the pay gap doesn't exist as such because there are currently only 2 female journalists covering sport. In the 30 years since independence, Moldova has sent only 1 female journalist to cover an Olympic Games. Young women wanting to follow a career in sports journalism have to work extra hard. And in many cases, according to my colleague, are not compensated. They do it out of love, and this eagerness is exploited. I've purposely left out the United States because I'll defer to Christine for that. There's another issue that's crucial to focus on, and that's a woman's inability to earn as much as a male counterpart long term. Women leave paid work to have families and are generally the main caregiver. Also when it comes to elderly parents. Being out of the workforce for a number of years impacts immensely on future income. In Australia, we've a superannuation scheme equivalent to a retirement fund, where employers are legally required to pay 9.5% of your salary into a super fund through a superannuation guarantee. The money is deposited into your superannuation account and invested, and the growth reinvested to help the balance. You receive that money upon retirement. A certain part of your wage goes into this, but the employer has to pay out of his own pocket into that retirement fund. If you leave to have a family, your superannuation benefit is obviously less than a male who traditionally stays in the workplace. On the bright side, being a female journalist comes with benefits unique to women. This from a young colleague. While some talent is dismissive, I'm nearly finished. While some talent is dismissive of a young woman questioning him or her, this can be frustrating. It can also be a blessing. Political talent often lets their guard down more because of subconscious bias. They explain things to you more deeply and can become a bit more loose-lipped than if they were sitting opposite a man. Of course, this isn't true of everyone. I've also told so many stories that I wouldn't be able to tell if I wasn't a woman. Mothers who've lost addicted children, women who've survived sexual assault, and women who feel more comfortable opening up to another woman. When I was reporting in Pakistan, being a woman opened up many more doors than being a man could ever have. I was allowed to interview women without chaperones so they could speak more freely. Government and police officials were much more open with information than they were with my male colleagues. So there are ups and downs, but being a woman certainly builds resilience, and that's what you need to be a dogged journalist. In conclusion, please tell us your story after all these speakers, because we really want to hear your side. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose, for these marvelous stories. And of course, all of you who have stories, try to collect them now, try to think about them now, because you will get your time after more two panelists. It will be on our schedule. We will go to Christine Brennan. Christine Brennan, sport columnist for USA Today, a commentator for CNN, for ABC News, for PBS NewsHour and National Public Radio, a best-selling author and a nationally known speaker. She has covered the last 18 Olympic Games. Christine, is it okay with you?
Yes, that's perfect. Hi, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I see many friends, and I'm already dropping things, and colleagues, and of course, new faces and new names. So it's an honor to be here. And Johnny, to you, my dear friend forever, thank you, thank you, thank you. Grazie, grazie, grazie. That's it for my Italian, but it is just an honor. So thanks to all of you. And I have a few thoughts, but first I want to say a happy 36th anniversary of the opening ceremony of the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. Now, some of you weren't born then, others of us were. Let's see if I can get this to work. Here's some of the press row, and somewhere in there is, let's see here, is my head, right? Okay, right there I am. It's me talking to my colleague, Edwin Pope. I was in kindergarten then, and but I've been so fortunate. It seems like yesterday, maybe last year. It's hard to believe it's been 36 years, but I'm so fortunate. That was my first Olympics that I covered, and I haven't missed one since. And I know that the Olympics is what binds many of us, other international sporting events as well, but certainly the Olympic Games is the biggest and the best. And as you mentioned, 18 in a row, looking forward to number 19, hopefully.
Of course.
Yes, a year from
No,
now.
it's okay, it's okay, it's okay.
Okay, hopefully a year from now. And of course, assuming we don't have a worldwide vaccine yet, it certainly will look different. So certainly hope that that works out. A few thoughts, and then obviously I'm happy to take any questions or I'll offer any advice. And I do want to say this, I have a website, which is just my name. So it's just christinebrennan.com. And you can send me an email there at any time. And I also have a student section that's with some videos with American journalists, women speaking about issues. So that's my website, which is just my name.com. And you're welcome to go there anytime. And if someone would like to speak to me one-on-one, please just send me an email. It takes a minute to fill out the form. I apologize. It takes, you have to do any of that, but I get that email within a few minutes. So I'm happy to help any way I can, having been around a few years and seen a few things. Clearly the growth in women's sports is one of the great success stories not just in sports, but in our culture globally over the past 50 years. In the United States, Title IX was signed by President Richard Nixon in June of 1972. That mandated equality for women and girls in sports and opened the floodgates for incredible opportunities for women and girls to play sports, but also to have careers in sports as coaches, trainers, lawyers, owners, general managers, team personnel, sports medicine, and yes, members of the sports media. You know, Title IX is something I think you hear about. We Americans like to talk about, especially during the Olympics, right? When our women are our stars. And there's no surprise. Our US women's soccer team, our women's football team being so good, that's because of Title IX. If there's no Title IX, we've never heard the name Mia Hamm. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's true. If there's no Title IX, which by the way, Donna was one of the leaders on that and made that happen. And I don't know if she's on today, but she presented beautifully last week. So many people to thank, including Donna and Billie Jean King. But that law has given the United States its swim team. It has given us our women's soccer team. It has given us our women's softball team. USA basketball, women's basketball hasn't lost, I don't think, since 1992, I believe it is, at the Olympics. That's Title IX. Those opportunities, for years, we were only giving boys and men in our country. And now, of course, women and girls, and the floodgates have opened, and you see the results. And of course, it's not just the US, but that is our law for the US, but so many other countries have dominated with their female athletes. No surprise at all. My career is illustrative of this trend. I was a 6-sport athlete in high school. I wasn't that great, but I played everything. Then I went to Northwestern University for journalism, then to the Miami Herald as its first woman sports writer. That was back in 1981. Then the Washington Post, my dream job. Now USA Today as a national columnist. I'm also a commentator for CNN, for ABC News, NPR, and PBS NewsHour. I'm so fortunate and so lucky. You know, our topic is equal pay for women in sports, both journalists and for the players. I do want to touch on that. You know, we are closer to equality for journalists, pay for women in journalism, than for women athletes. Even though there are exceptions, of course, in sports. You know, you think of Serena Williams, clearly. She is getting equal pay and then more. She's getting everything she deserves. Other tennis players as well. Figure skaters like Michelle Kwan, when she was in her heyday, making millions, deservedly so. Top Olympians now, like Katie Ledecky and Simone Biles, just making every bit, if not more than men in their sports. And just, again, they deserve it. The pay disparity in sports is something that we've heard a lot about. Of course, we've heard about the U.S. women's soccer football team, that story, which I think most of you know about. But I do want to make a point, because I think when we get into conversations, the next time you're chatting with a friend, maybe a man who maybe isn't for equality in women's sports and women's pay. I don't think there's any men out there anymore like that, are there? Yeah. Unfortunately, I think there are. But the difference, for example, with the U.S. women's national football team and the U.S. men's national football team, we know one is incredibly successful. We know the other is not. It's the U.S. national governing body that actually pays that. And we also, of course, understand the difference between a national governing body and FIFA in the case of football. The FIFA conversation is a separate one. But here's my point about U.S. national governing bodies. Figure skating, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, Michelle Kwan. Back in the day, her counterpart would have been a male skater, Michael Weiss or Timothy Gable. And U.S. figure skating, when they paid stipends, when they paid prize money, they paid the men equal to the women, even though Michelle Kwan was far and away a bigger star and brought in more fans and led to better TV ratings. Michelle Kwan was the star. Yet US figure skating paid the men equal to Michelle Kwan for one reason. They wanted to encourage more boys and men to get into the sport. Because at the governing body level, at least in the United States, those are nonprofits. And that's about growing the game and growing the sport. So figure skating could have paid Michelle Kwan a lot more than they paid the men, but no, they paid equally. And that's an important point when you think of the conversation about US women's soccer. When the federation was not paying them equally, consider what figure skating did. They paid the underrepresented gender, i.e., in this case, men, equal to the women to encourage boys to become figure skaters. Whether that worked or not is another story. But in the case of soccer, the underrepresented gender, women are coming on fast now, but back in the day, it was women, and they did not pay them equally. And that is one of the great failures of US soccer. And one of their biggest mistakes was to not pay the women equally, whether or not they win World Cups or Olympic gold medals or not. And I think that is one of the conversations and one of the differences. Professional leagues, when we talk about paying athletes, female and male athletes, we're not there yet. That's about capitalism, at least in the United States and Canada. And there's no way the WNBA players will make what the NBA players make. I wish they would, but in most of these sports, we've got women's sports are, if it were 100-meter dash, the men in most of their professional sports worldwide, certainly professional football around the world, but especially in the United States, professional sports, if it's a 100-meter dash, the men are probably at the 60 or 70-meter mark. And women, professional sports, are just coming out of the blocks. So how can we expect that to be equal? Now we can fight for that, and we definitely should fight for that. But it's also understandable that women lag behind, and we shouldn't use that as an indicator of failure, but of the opportunity for growth. Now, on to the pay for women in sports media. And we've already had some wonderful conversations and great points made by my fellow colleagues who, as I said, I'm so honored to be with all of you today. But here's my headline. Women can make a lot of money in sports journalism. You can make a wonderful living in sports journalism, but it's about longevity and about rising to positions of authority and power. At USA Today, I'll use myself for an example, I've been the paper's national columnist for more than 20 years. I have worked for ABC News for 25 years. I've worked for CNN for 6 years under contract. Before that, I would appear occasionally for years. I've worked for NPR, National Public Radio, as a commentator for 25 years, and PBS NewsHour, the public television newscast, for 20 years. This all adds up. Another example, USA Today's sports editor, my boss, is a woman. It's the second woman to hold that job in a decade. That makes a difference. She is the boss. Being the top editor, being the top columnist, and we have another woman columnist and also another woman who is a sports columnist, Nancy Armour, plus we have many other women sports writers. That's where the prestige is, and it makes sense that that's where the salaries are. I want to also mention the Association for Women in Sports Media. Everyone can join. Men join. We are inclusive. Association for Women in Sports Media. Please write it down if it's of interest to you. You can check out the website for AWSM. We call it awesome. You can definitely look at the Twitter feed. And we started that back more than 30 years ago, and I was the first president. And we started a scholarship internship program for young women. That was very important for me to helps just get that going. And I fund 2 of those scholarships today. Those are usually US college students, although you certainly do not have to be a US citizen, but you do have to be a woman. So again, we would love to have you join. If you're a student watching and listening, again, as a woman, you could apply for the internship program every year. And we encourage women to be sports journalists, and we network and we fight for women. And if you've read some of the articles of the past few weeks about the Washington NFL team and sexual harassment of 15 women and then 2 journalists, female journalists, those are the kinds of issues we at the Association for Women in Sports Media work so hard on. And you can find, again, look at the Twitter feed, at least follow that. And we're there for you. Networking, please do check that out. Women make up about 12 to 15% of US newspaper sports departments right now. That's not great, right? 12 to 15%, not good at all. And there certainly aren't that many being hired right now in the pandemic and in our difficult economic times. But there are dozens of women columnists out there now, the top writers for news organizations, women. And there are dozens of women who are sports editors, who are the bosses running those sports sections, as well as many, many women on TV. I will turn on my TV here in Washington, D.C. locally, and I'll see a woman giving the sportscast. Often you'll turn the channel and you'll see another woman giving the sportscast on that channel. ESPN, I'm sure all of you are well aware of ESPN. It's often women delivering the sports news. Of course, that's as it should be. Of course it is. That wasn't happening 20 or 30 years ago. It is happening now. And when you get into those positions, those prime positions, those coveted positions, then you can demand, or you just receive, the salaries that the men have been receiving for years. A couple more thoughts and then I'll stop. Other ways to level the playing field, because I'm no Pollyanna. I understand we have a long way to go. I'm not trying to sugarcoat this at all. But other ways to level the playing field in terms of money. If you are a print journalist, try to do television work. Try to get paid for television work. Although often when you start, my case, the Lillehammer Olympics, the Tanya Nancy fiasco, that story that took over the whole Olympics, ridiculously so. Well, that's when I started doing television work, and I didn't get paid a dime, not $1, but it led to the contracts later on in my life, and I was in my 30s at that point. So start doing television work. You never know where that might lead if you are a print journalist. Write books. Books are wonderful. I've written 7. A couple have been bestsellers. Again, I didn't necessarily have a plan when I started that that's what I would do, but writing a book, you're an expert on something, you can write a book about it, you can make money. And when you are an expert, make yourself that expert in a few specific areas, and you can become the go-to person in those areas. That can lead to more money. I realize not everyone can do this, of course. If you're young and new to sports media, and I'm sure many of you are who are here with us today, it can take a while. It took a while for me. As I started in Miami, I had a small salary right out of college, and I was thrilled to be doing what I loved, and I wasn't worried about the money. I had enough, of course, and I had hopes that I would continue in my career. I wasn't thinking money. I was thinking about opportunities and adventures and doing what I love. And then the money came. But right now, I totally understand that you hear these stories and you're probably saying, okay, but how does that happen to me? She's telling me this story after all these years in the business. How does it happen to me? Well, I'm here to tell you, I was you, you are me, we are, you're all of us if you're young. And you do have to start. And sometimes it can be difficult. And especially during this pandemic, we will likely lose ground in the battle for pay equity. Certainly women are losing jobs, and that is difficult. So again, I'm not trying to be overly optimistic, but where there is change, there is also opportunity. Where there's transition and turmoil, there's opportunity. And to jump into those opportunities, of course, and to start making a name for yourself if you're young, or for those who are mid-career and dealing with change, again, to try to reinvent yourself. There are many ways, as I said, including things like writing books or switching mediums, if you can, again, understanding the incredible constraints we have now. But the bottom line is that demographics and the march of women wanting careers in sports is only increasing because girls and women are playing sports as never before, and many will want careers in sports. So, I remember the days way back when, say, 20 or 30 women wrote sports in America. just 20 or 30 across the entire United States. Now there are more than 1,000. Really hard to keep track, could be 2,000. Women I've never heard of, and I'm so happy to say that I don't know, who are out there doing amazing things. Television, radio, newspapers, websites, blogs, you name it, they're all out there. So I am very, very optimistic that the glass is not half empty, but it is half full for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. Your optimism is very, very good. So we are optimistic too. Thank you very much. And now, as I have information, Leila is with us. Leila, welcome. I will just change my earphone because you will speak on Arabic. So you can start now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, dear journalist. Good morning, everybody. But I speak with Arabic. Okay. أنا ليلى بن فرحات، صحفية في التلفزيون الجزائري منذ 2001، قرابة 20 سنة هكذا. أنا صحفية رياضية في القسم الرياضي للتلفزيون الجزائري العمومي، وهذا في حد ذاته هو فخر كبير، وهو أيضا ضمان كبير مقارنة بالقنوات الخاصة، لأنه سأتحدث عن أمر الأجور فيما بعد، لأنه نقطة ربما هي أقل أهمية بالنسبة لي في مشواري مقارنة بالإنجازات الخاصة بالإعلامية الرياضية. أولا دعوني أقول أنني أفتخر جدا أنني مع هذه الزبدة وهذا الكم الكبير من الإعلاميين الرياضيين المتألقين على مستوى العالم. أشكر AIPS ميديا والاتحاد الدولي أيضا على إتاحة هذه الفرصة أن أكون معكم وأن أبعث من خلالكم أنتم برسالة قوية لكل الإعلاميين الرياضيين بصفة عامة والإعلاميات الرياضيات السيدات، أقصد المرأة أكيد خاصة. سأتحدث عن أمر مهم. الإعلام الرياضي بداية هو عشق، لأن اختيار الصحافة يمكن أن يكون حب، لكن أن تختار الرياضة والإعلام الرياضي فهو عشق في حد ذاته، بمعنى أنه لديك إمكانيات كبيرة تريد أن تفجرها، تريد أن تثبت ذاتك من خلالها. وأظن أن التلفزيون الجزائري اليوم أتاح لي هذه الفرصة، وأعتبر وبفخر واعتزاز أول امرأة عربية علقت على التلفزيون، أقولها التلفزيون، على مباريات كرة القدم على المباشر، وهذا إنجاز كبير جدا في وقت كنا نظن أن التعليق على مباريات كرة القدم هو حكر على الرجل فقط. ليس هكذا وليس هذا هو، لأنني أثبت ذاتي مع الرجال اليوم في هذا الاختصاص الكبير ألا وهو الإعلام الرياضي. أتحدث أيضا على كل هذه الإيجابيات. أرى أيضا شيء مهم، أنه من بين ربما الصعوبات التي تجدها المرأة الإعلامية ليست تماما من جانب زميلاتها المرأة في العمل، بالعكس تماما. أرى أن جل المشاكل ربما تكون بدرجة كبيرة من الرجل، بمعنى أنه لما تضاهي ولما يكون للمرأة الإعلامية الرياضية نفس مستوى الرجل، يصبح أو تصبح تلك ربما الغيرة الغير محبوبة تماما بينهما، وبالتالي يشكل لها ذلك عائقا كبيرا. فعوض أن يكون هو السند لها يكون هو ربما المحارب المباشر لها. هذا أمر آخر. رغم أن كل الأبواب فتحت للمرأة الإعلامية، كوني أنا مقدمة برامج كبيرة جدا رياضية على التلفزيون الجزائري، أيضا معلقة ومقدمة أخبار، وهذا شيء جميل جدا أن يتوفر في امرأة وفي تلفزيون عمومي، وهذا أشيد به وأشكر جدا التلفزيون الجزائري. لكن ما يعاب اليوم لا أريد أن أتحدث عن أو بذلك الخطاب العقيم، بمعنى هناك من يتحدث عن المساواة. لقد تجاوزنا كلمة المساواة. لا نبحث اليوم على مساواة بين الرجل والمرأة، انتهى هذا الأمر. لا يوجد مساواة تماما، لأن المرأة ذات نفس الرجل والرجل هو المرأة، والفرق بينهما هو the quality، العمل، طريقة العمل الذي تقوم بها المرأة والكيفية التي تقوم بها. لكن ما يعاب اليوم على ربما الدول العربية بصفة خاصة أنه لا زال ينظر للمرأة الإعلامية الرياضية بتلك النظرة الدونية بين قوسين، بمعنى هناك تقصير في إعطائها تلك القيمة. مثلا في المسؤولية، لا أظن ولم يحدث أن تقلدت امرأة إعلامية رياضية منصبا مهما في ربما الإعلام الرياضي في الجزائر، على الأقل لدينا في التلفزيون أو في القنوات الخاصة. لم تكن هناك امرأة قادة القسم الرياضي، لم تكن هناك امرأة مديرة للقسم الرياضي. فدائما نشعر أن المرأة هي مرافقة للرجل القائد، وهذا شعور صعب جدا. حتى وإن تفوقت المرأة إداريا وتفوقت عملا وتفوقت ربما خبرة، لا يسند إليها مهمة إدارة مثل هذه الأمور. ربما هذه أبسط الأشياء. أيضا هناك نقطة مهمة جدا. مثلا أتحدث عن نفسي منذ 20 عاما قمت بتغطية الألعاب الأولمبية، ألعاب البحر المتوسط، عدة مناسبات دولية، لكن لا أتذكر أنني قدت وفدا إعلاميا تنقل لتغطية مناسبة ما. فدائما الرجل هو من يقود الوفد. لماذا لا تقوده المرأة؟ هل هذا نقص ونقص ثقة في ربما إمكانيات المرأة الإعلامية؟ وإن كان كذلك فلماذا يرى هذا النقص؟ أين هو هذا النقص؟ حتى وإن أثبتت المرأة جدارتها في علاقاتها الكبيرة، في إداراتها للأمور، في حنكتها، فلما لا تسند إليها مثل هذه المسؤوليات الكبيرة؟ ليست بالنسبة للجانب المادي تماما إطلاقا، لكن على الأقل دعوا المرأة تشعر أنها يمكن أن تكون قائدة، يمكن أن تكون لديها تلك القدرة لربما دفع الرجل قدما. لماذا يجب أن يقود الرجل دائما المرأة؟ فهذا مشكل على الأقل نفسي بالنسبة للمرأة أكثر من أنه مادي. هذا شيء مهم. أيضا أتحدث أيضا عن ربما كل المناسبات. عندما تختار المرأة لتقديم مثلا مناسبة والتعليق عليها، لماذا ينظر إليها الرجل بتلك النظرة الدونية ونظرة الاستهتار على أنها لا تستطيع أن تقوم به، حتى وإن أثبتت العكس؟ كلها أمور تؤلم جدا، رغم أن المرأة عبر العالم، وأنا أشاهد هذا الكم الهائل من الإعلاميات وأنا فخورة بهم جدا، على غرار ريكا، روزالين، أسماء كبيرة معنا أثبتت مكانتها الكبيرة إعلاميا وتريد أن تقدم أكثر. لكن لماذا كل تلك القيود؟ أنا ربما لا أتحدث عن نفسي كثيرا، قلتها سابقا أنني أنتمي لمؤسسة عمومية، بمعنى أن كل حقوقي محفوظة، حقوقي المادية وحقوقي ربما كمواطنة وكإعلامية محفوظة جدا في التلفزيون الجزائري، لأنه هو من فتح لي المجال لأن أكون معكم اليوم وأن أمثله اليوم وأن أعلق وأن أقدم وأن أكون عضوا في أكبر ربما المناسبات الدولية على غرار الاتحاد الدولي للصحافة الرياضية. لكن أتحدث عن زميلاتي في كل الدول الأخرى، من يشتغل في الصحافة المكتوبة في القنوات الخاصة، ليس لهم كل هذا الحظ في إثبات ذاتهم. أنادي اليوم وأقول يجب أن نترك للمرأة الإعلامية مساحة أكبر، يجب أن نثق في المرأة الإعلامية، يجب أن ندرك أنها قادرة على إدارة الأمور بشكل جيد جدا. فلماذا كل هذا التحفظ في التعامل مع المرأة العربية. فالمرأة أو عفوا المرأة الإعلامية العالمية بصفة عامة وليست العربية فقط، أقولها اليوم: دعوا المرأة الإعلامية تثبت أنها جديرة بما تقوم به، واتركوها تفعل أكثر مما تفعل اليوم، لشيء واحد فقط: أعطوها تلك الثقة الكافية، دعوها تدير الأمور، سلموها مناصب لإثبات ذاتها، فلما لا هي دون الرجل دائما في هذا الجانب. أتحدث ربما في نقطة أخيرة، أطلت عليكم كثيرا زملائي الأعزاء. بالنسبة للأجور، قد تكون المرأة في نفس أجر الرجل، لكن لم تكن يوما أكثر منه أجرا، حتى وإن فاقته خبرة في السنوات، حتى وإن فاقته خبرة في العمل، حتى وإن فاقته خبرة في الجمال وفي كل شيء. أمزح فقط. يعني كل هذه الأمور هي موجودة عند المرأة، فلماذا نقيد حرية تلك المرأة الذي لا زال ينظر إليها بنظرة دونية نوعا ما؟ خاصة أقولها ليس فقط المرأة الإعلامية، حتى المرأة التي تلعب كرة القدم اليوم. لماذا ننظر إليها تلك النظرة الناقصة؟ دعوا المرأة تنطلق حرة، دعوها تتقلد المناصب، دعوها تعمل، ودعوها تثبت ذاتها. شكرا.
Thank you. It was very, very good. And now the floor is for you, for everybody who joined this seminar of AIPS. And of course, we would like to hear from you everything you have to say or to ask our panelists. So the first three who will be on that list is Dema Khalid from Kuwait, Deravan Haji from Kurdistan, and Patricia Bitota. So be prepared, and be prepared to be not longer than 3 minutes, please. Dema Khalid from Kuwait.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Mr. President.
Dema, can you open your camera to see you, not only the photo?
No, it's broken, actually.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to especially thanks to IPS Asian President Mr. Sattam Al-Sadi for supporting me and supporting women here in our country, Kuwait. I think every woman those like word struggling for a very long time. And for me as FEI member, International Federation for Equestrian, and I have the first position for department head of women equestrian here in Kuwait. I think women need to negotiate more and use their voices to talk about what they really want. I know this is really in the media law of media coverage for a women's sport. And actually this is lead us to the first session that we have and the second one. I think that's the reason why women hear in the word a few little in the word journalist sport. And they're forgotten, they will not get paid. And I think the underrepresentation will not get paid equal. Women have to be aware of what her colleagues get paid because she wants to know. And I suggest actually for the IPS, to have a word actually for only women, to honoring women in the Middle East or in all over the world. So I believe in one small steps will make a big change. So I think if a woman there will speak more and use their voices, I think a lot of chances there. So they have like to step, a small step, and to use their voices. This is my message to all the women there. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we are going to Kurdistan. Deravan Haji from Kurdistan is with us. Deravan.
Bonjour. Moi, je voudrais parler français, s'il vous plaît.
No problem.
Je peux commencer? Bonjour.
Yes.
Je suis ravi. Bonjour. Je suis ravi d'être là aujourd'hui avec vous. Je suis très content, ainsi que M. Zanakader, ainsi soit Karim, et les deux journalistes kurdes, il est avec nous. Moi, si vous voulez, en fait, je suis kurde d'Irak, je suis le seul journaliste sportif kurde en Europe, correspondant sportif. Hein. Je travaille pour le Coursad News et une télévision kurde d'Irak. Aujourd'hui, je voudrais parler sur les difficultés que les journalistes femmes kurdes rencontrent aux Kurdistan d'Irak. En fait, si vous voulez, à cause de la situation géopolitique du Kurdistan et Irak, il n'y a pas des journalistes femmes kurdes au Kurdistan ou au Irak. Il y a, je pense, 3 ou 4 journalistes dans tout Irak qui sont membres dans le AIPS. Je voudrais, sur les difficultés que les journalistes kurdes rencontrent au Kurdistan d'Irak, je voudrais notamment aborder le poids correspondant l'attribution des cartes AIPS aux journalistes kurdes et Irak. En tant que donné que les Kurdistan n'est pas le statut d'État, les journalistes kurdes et femmes ou hommes doivent passer par le gouvernement central d'Irak pour passer des demandes de cartes AIPS. Nous, on n'est pas pays. Il n'y a pas pays au Kurdistan, il n'y a pas État. Cela est parfois compliqué en raison de la situation politique entre la région du Kurdistan et le gouvernement central. Les journalistes sportifs au Kurdistan sont très actifs et aimant de bien voir les procédures d'activation des cartes AIPS facilitées pour eux. En tant que je suis président d'une association centre franco-kurde en France, à Paris, au Kurdistan, pour la culture, je suis prêt de participer à contribuer dans toute solution visant à faciliter les procédures d'activation des cartes AIPS aux journalistes kurdes dans la région Kurdistan avec AIPS. Et nous sommes prêts pour vous inviter.
Okay, Darawan, I think we understand everything you have to say. This is not exactly the point of this seminar, but you can write to us, you can write me an email and we will try to find a way on this. This was Darawan, he was from Kurdistan, and now Patricia Bitota, please prepare Akram from Yemen, but now Patricia Bitota, I don't know from which country, Patricia, you are. Patricia? No, I don't hear her. So Akram, you are with us. Akram, welcome.
Thank you so much for giving me this chance. I will speak in Arabic.
Yes, no problem.
أنا أكرم مثنى من اليمن، عضو الجمعية اليمنية للإعلام الرياضي. أقيم حاليا في اليابان للدراسة. يمكنني طبعا الحديث باللغة الإنجليزية واليابانية والعربية. أنا أشارك حاليا في بعض الدورات التحضيرية لأولمبياد طوكيو. أود أن أوجه 3 رسائل في من خلال هذا المنبر. أولا، رسالة شكر للاتحاد الدولي للصحافة الرياضية على إتاحة وإقامة هذه الندوات والتي تعود بالفائدة على الصحفيين الرياضيين في أنحاء العالم. أتحدث هنا عن تجربة الزميلات حول العالم تحديداً. ثانياً، أود أن أعرج سريعاً على الوضع الصحفي في اليمن. كون الوضع الصحفي تأثر كثيراً بسبب الحرب المستمرة هناك على مدى أكثر من 5 سنوات، إلا أن هناك جهود كبيرة يوقفها الجانب الاجتماعي، ما يصعب العمل الإعلامي في اليمن للفتيات. على سبيل المثال، لدينا معضلة تتمثل في أن الفتيات لا يستطيعن السفر دون مرافق شخصي من العائلة في معظم المناطق في اليمن داخلياً، ناهيك عن السفر الخارجي. أيضاً فضلاً عن الثقافة التي تعتبر الصحافة الرياضية عيب بسبب مخالطة الرجال في الرياضة. في الحقيقة لدينا الكثير من الخريجات من خريجات الإعلام من عدد من الكليات والجامعات في اليمن، لكن قلة منهن من تتجه لممارسة الإعلام الرياضي. كل هذه الظروف زادت الوضع الصحفي في اليمن تعقيداً، لذا فإن الصحفيات اللواتي يعملن في المجال الصحفي الرياضي في اليمن قليل جداً. ثالثاً، هي دعوة أوجهها من خلال هذا المنبر إلى الاتحاد الدولي للصحافة الرياضية إلى إيلاء اليمن مزيد من الاهتمام نظرا لصعوبة الوضع الراهن الذي تمر به. ختاما وأخيرا، سأكون سعيدا جدا باستقبالكم هنا في اليابان خلال الألعاب الأولمبية، كما أشكركم جميعا على حسن الاستماع وأعتذر على الإطالة.
Thank you very much for these nice words. And before we continue with Miriam Bracho from Venezuela, I will give a word for our panelist, Rosalind Morris. Rosalind, you have something to add, but Miriam, be prepared, please. Rosalind?
Okay. It was very interesting to hear our colleague from Kuwait. But to be honest, to have a special award just for women is a huge step backwards. And I completely disagree with that. And I think most people listening today would do so as well. I mean, we have to be equal. We have to work not as women or men. We have to be equal. Why do we need a special award just for women? I'll leave that to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rose. Now we are going to, as I already say, Miriam Bracho from Venezuela. Please be prepared. Jelka Guindo. Jelka, be prepared, but now Miriam from Venezuela.
Yura, sorry, our president would like to
Gracias
say something.
por la oportunidad. Soy de Venezuela y trabajé más de 25 años en el periodismo deportivo de mi país. Fui la segunda mujer editora de un departamento de deportes de un medio de comunicación impreso, de un periódico, el segundo de mayor circulación en el país. Lo que me sucedió fue que cuando era redactora, cuando me contrataron como redactora, la principal oposición que tuve fue del Departamento de Recursos Humanos. Ellos le sugirieron al director del periódico y al dueño del periódico que contratar a una mujer para deportes iba a ocasionar más gastos, porque requería a la hora de coberturas una habitación más, pagar una habitación más, e incluso lo que me proponían después que se logró que me contrataran, era que si yo tenía algún familiar en las ciudades donde iba a cubrir los eventos, para que yo me quedara en esos sitios y así ellos, en caso, ahorrarse ese dinero. Eso se solventó, mi trabajo siempre fue a la altura y luego a los 5 años de estar allí me promueven como editora. Pasa lo siguiente, parte de la junta directiva del periódico no quería, porque no sentía que que tenía la suficiente capacidad o era lo suficientemente como responsable para asumir ese cargo, cuando todos mis empleados iban a ser hombres e incluso mayores que yo. Eso también se solventó. Lo insólito es que 10 años después de yo haber ocupado ese cargo, de ser, solamente en Venezuela habíamos 2 mujeres ocupando ese cargo, se cambian los dueños del periódico, cambia el director y volvimos atrás. O sea, 10 años después, insólitamente se vuelve atrás, porque el nuevo director comenzó a presionarme, a imponerme, a cambiarme los periodistas, a cambiarme incluso las notas, a alterarme las notas, hasta el punto que me dijo que él no quería trabajar conmigo. Esa situación llevó a que yo saliera del periódico y lamentablemente no recibí apoyo en mi país. O sea, simplemente fue un caso más de despido, lo tomaron incluso desde el punto de vista político. Por eso me parece importante esta ventana que se está abriendo, que está abriendo la AIPS para todos estos casos, porque simplemente, o sea, pasé 25 años de mi vida trabajando, siendo pionera en mi área, y al final no pasó nada, no recibí apoyo ni tanto de periodistas, ni de hombres, ni de mujeres. Simplemente se trató, o sea, pasó al olvido, digamos. Y por eso vuelvo a repetir que es importante tener más ventanas en donde nosotras podamos decir que eso no es normal. O sea, eso que me pasó a mí o que ha pasado innumerables ocasiones y que hemos escuchado aquí, no es normal y no podemos seguir permitiéndolo. Gracias por la oportunidad.
Thank you very much, Miriam, for this not nice story, but for this story and for this courage you have. Replica from Mr. President, Gianni Mello.
I wanted only to tell something regarding the previous intervention of the two men regarding Kurdistan, Iraq, and Yemen. I can tell them that here is not the place where we can discuss of some matters. But what we are doing as IPS, we are helping all the journalists of this area to try to be our member, even if sometimes the association is not still recognized completely because, for example, in Yemen there is a war and we are waiting the end of the war to get back to the real association. And regarding the membership, every journalist of this country can apply to be member, and our commission regarding membership will decide if they have the possibility to enter according to the curricula that they will sign. So it's very clear, but we know exactly what is happening in the Middle East, and we are trying to help all the colleagues that are working with us. So be sure that APS is working on this, but this is not the place in which we have to discuss about this matter, because in the moment we are discussing about the right of the women to have a better situation.
Yes, of course, Gianni. I already asked the colleague to write us a letter or email. As I told, Jelka Guindo will be next, and after her, Queen Chikezi. So prepare, Queen, and Jelka, it's your time. Queen?
Hello.
Yes.
I'm here. Yes.
Can we see you?
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, everybody. With you. I don't think my camera can actually go on right now. It's
okay.
shaky.
Just listening. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And I want to ask two questions. First, I want to know more about the association and I want to be young
Queen, about what association? We didn't hear you. No, we have a serious problem with Queen. So I'm sorry,
broadcaster.
Queen.
I just got started of media.
Queen, we didn't hear your question about
Hello.
Which organization you want to know more.
The Association of Women in Sports.
Women in Sports. So.
Yes.
Welcome.
And then how to. Hello.
Yes.
And how to become a member of AIPS. Thank you.
For member of AIPS, you can find on our website. It's not a problem. But about the women in sport, okay. So ladies, maybe Christine?
Yes. Hi there. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for your question. We'd love to have you as a member. So it's the Association for Women in Sports Media. I'm putting it into my phone right now. And you will, let me just get it for you here. There's a lot of associations for women. So in sports media, I'm having trouble finding it, and I am a member. Okay, so it's AWSM. This is just the phone version. And this is, so you can see here about, oh, there I am actually with a couple of our other members in Miami a few years ago, some of our young members. We are probably 99% US, but only because we're in the US. We actually, I shouldn't say that. We probably have, I don't know the numbers now, but we certainly have had Canadian women and women from Mexico. And for example, when I've been at events, I've mentioned it. You can see there's all kinds of information, a woman interviewing a baseball player there, who we are, what we do, our mission. So AWSM, Association for Women in Sports Media, and I would check that out. You can join and pay dues. which I believe are $50 US for professionals. I think it's $25 for students, but here's my suggestion. We'd love to have you join, of course. So please, 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 if you feel you want to join, we'd love to have you. But my suggestion is to look at the website and to follow AWSM on Twitter. And on Twitter, you will see all the issues being discussed. You can obviously join the conversation. There's also Instagram. Any statements that come from AWSM about issues involving women doing our jobs, they're both on Twitter and Instagram. So I think you can accomplish much of what you might do by joining by just following on Twitter and on Instagram, also Facebook. I know there's a Facebook page.
Thank you, Christine, for this very detailed information. Of course, you can also join AIPS, no problem for that, aipsmedia.com. But we are going to Nigeria. Reliance Udoen, if I read it correct. Sorry if I didn't. Nigeria, Reliance.
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
All right. First off, I want to say thank you very much to AIPS for putting together this seminar. For the past 2 days, two sessions also, I've enjoyed a lot, and also come to a lot of understanding. And I also want to add that in this region of Nigeria, especially my work environment, we do have lots of women. In fact, in the organization I work for, a woman is our head. She's our boss, and we have a lot of them. Another one close to me, we have a woman being the head of the sports department of that particular organization. So we are doing quite well in that regard. But my question, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so she talks about other ways in which we can, women.
No, we have a big problem.
Maybe I think at this point I'm allowed to say generally journalists. Can you get me? Can you hear me?
No, not. Be short. Just short question.
Okay. So I would love Christine to speak more again on other means of generating money apart from depending on salaries coming in from the respective organization that each journalist is working for.
Okay, Reliance. Christine, did you hear it? So, Christine, we are waiting for your answer.
Yes, took me a second to unmute. Thank you for your question. I think if anything, to be as innovative and curious as you can. For example, I encourage young journalists here in the United States to go on websites of news organizations and watch the TV, watch some of the reporting, or read the newspaper, and maybe email, just cold email, if that makes sense. Just out of the blue, send emails to the journalists that you are watching. Maybe it's a city that you don't even know, and start to create relationships with journalists you don't know via the internet. You have a tool in this computer that when I was growing up, I never had. And it seemed like, that we had no cell phones and no answering machines and no VCRs. And I think Abraham Lincoln was president. It seems so long ago. But you have this, so use it. Now you might say, well, that sounds like a waste of time. You might say, I'm just going to spend hours sending emails to people, asking, can I write for them? Can I have a cup of coffee when we're in the same city and use them as a mentor? Well, I get emails, and I'm sure others do as well, cold emails. I don't have any jobs to give out, and yet I still receive many emails from students in the United States or even from places around the world. And I do my best to help them. What you never might know, or you might not realize, is that when you are emailing someone, let's say that person that you've emailed, now you have a pen pal relationship, right? You email back and forth. Maybe you meet once or twice. Now someone breaks their leg in their newsroom and they need someone for 3 months. And we need someone who might be cheap, right? But young and hungry and ready to go. And all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, what about that person I've been emailing with? These things happen. Last thought, we can talk about this forever, but last thought, I gave this exact advice to a woman, an American, who was looking for jobs, had nothing after coming out of Northwestern with a master's degree in journalism. 0 jobs. She started emailing and emailing, just out of the blue, cold emailing. She didn't get 1 job, she got 2 jobs. So use the internet to your advantage. That's the #1 thing I would give as advice for young journalists, and good luck.
Nice advice, Christine. Thank you very much. Now we are going to Saudi Arabia. Alzair is waiting for us, and after that it will be Francine from Congo. So first Alzair from Saudi Arabia.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Manar Alzair from Saudi Arabia. I'm a qualified dentist, a member of Saudi Arabian Football Federation, and a sport news presenter in the official Saudi TV Al-Ikhbariya news channel. I started my career as a news reporter for Saudi TV 10 years ago during the World Cup 2014. I moved to Al-Ikhbariya news channel to present sport news. When I started my career, I faced a lot of negative reaction as a female presenting news on a TV, as the local community did not accept women in the sport. I am proud. I was the first female sport news presenter in Al-Akhbariya news channel. It was a challenge that I had to take and accept. During that time, women were paid much less than their equivalent male colleagues. I happily watched and presented during the 6 years the news of the greater involvement of Saudi women in sport. As a woman, the impact of Vision 2030 led by His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed ibn Salman had a great impact in my life, on my life and my career as a lady. I am now head-to-head with my male colleagues in terms of salary. The main factor nowadays is a qualification rather than the gender. The local community is now accepting women working in the fields that were exclusive to the men. When it comes to sport, I think decision by the government that had the greatest impact on sport in the last few years were allowing women to attend football matches and forming football teams for women, as well as allowing women to work as referees in different sports. Thank you so much.
Thank you, because it was very, very good to know this evaluation of women in sport journalism, and hope to see you on one of our congresses soon. Thank you very much, Alzair. Now we are going to Congo, as I say. Francine will be there. And prepare, please, Chidibere from Nigeria. But first, Congo, Francine.
Je voudrais apporter aussi mon apport par rapport à ce qu'a dit Christine et Maurice, Roselyne. Moi, je pense que elles n'ont pas tort de dire que l'inégalité salariale dans les plans professionnels existe. Personne ne peut le nier. Mais ce n'est pas aussi le problème avec la femme. La femme d'elle-même se dévalorise. Elle ne sait pas dire que oui, je vaux quelque chose. Parce que nous faisons le même travail. Quand nous allons à l'université, il n'y a pas des branches où on dit que ça, c'est réservé uniquement pour les femmes. Il n'y a pas un journalisme réservé pour femmes et hommes. Nous faisons tous le même travail. Mais pourquoi cette inégalité intervient dans les professionnels? Déjà, la base aussi a été mauvaise. Dans d'autres nations ou cultures, si je peux le dire ainsi, on n'apprend pas à la femme, à une fille, disons, les mêmes valeurs qu'on apprend à un garçon, à un petit garçon. À une fille, on dit, tu dois être soumise à l'homme. Et cela aussi se répercute facilement dans le milieu professionnel. Tu pourras rencontrer un chef qui va te dire que non, tu es une femme, tu es mariée, qu'est-ce que tu vas faire avec beaucoup d'argent? C'est aussi parmi les blocages que nous rencontrons. Parce que l'homme estiment que la femme doit totalement dépendre d'un autre homme qui est son mari. Or, ce n'est pas ça. La femme aussi a ses besoins parce que à l'université, nous avons fait la même chose. Je ne sais pas si je me suis fait comprendre.
Yes, we understand it totally, and thank you for your thoughts. I think that in the later phase, our panelists will answer you. But now we will listen for Chidi Bear from Nigeria.
Hello,
Yes.
my name is Chidi Ezani. I'm a sports journalist from Nigeria. I used to work with Television Continental in Lagos, but I'm currently running a master's degree program in sports management at Seoul National University. Okay, so being a sports journalist in Nigeria as a female was one of the most difficult things to do, because first of all, they pick the men ahead of you. You get sexual propositions just to get positions that they know you are very good at. And one thing that has been disheartening for me is the fact that it's our male colleagues who work with us that don't encourage the women who work in the field to take the opportunities, especially when it comes to travel. You work in an office where there's one woman, 7 men on the sports desk. And when it's the Women's World Cup, the man wants to still go to the Women's World Cup. We're not even asking to go to the Olympics. We're not asking to go to the Men's World Cup. It's the Women's World Cup, and they're still clamoring for it. So I was very happy when I saw some men in this panel because it's essential that they hear that it's necessary for women to first of all participate. Now, earlier, Rosalind, she said something about it not being okay to have special functions for women because we're supposed to all be equal. I don't think that applies for every society because, for instance, there are hardly any media houses in Nigeria that have more than one woman as a permanent staff in the sports team. So that makes it a little bit more difficult for others to get involved, meaning one woman has to give way for another woman to come in. But if we have a process where women are given more opportunities, even if it's special, then that makes it a little bit more encouraging for other journalists in school to go into sports journalism. I also think that it is very important that maybe if there was a way to encourage from the AIPS to encourage female sports journalists to attend events, because it's very important. You have journalists who have been practicing for close to 10 years and they've never been to an international event, which really it's part of what being a journalist is. So these are the things that I have been thinking of and part of what I believe can foster being, effective sports journalists first, which is very important for me, and then we can reach the pay gap situation.
Thank you very much for the thank you very much for this. I'm sure that it will be some reaction from our panelists in a few minutes, but let's hear Govinda Raj from Nepal, and after that, Katrina from Namibia. Govindra? Hello, Nepal.
Hello.
Yes.
Namaste and good evening from Nepal. Namaste to all. It's nice to listening you all from all around the world. Just I want to ask one question with my Indian fellow panelist, Rika Roy. So how is the current situation of female sport journalists in India?
Yes, can you hear me now? Hello, good evening, Govind. Well, as I mentioned during my speech that we did a survey of sports journalists in several newsrooms across the country, and it was pre the pandemic. And the survey was done across languages, not just the national newspapers and the digital medium, but also the regional ones. And the number we reached at was 66, and it's quite a surprising figure given that we have 1.3 billion population. But I also don't know the male to female ratio in newsrooms. Having said that, I can tell you that in my organization, I am the only one who is a sports journalist, who's technically qualified to be a sports journalist. The others pool in with their production experience, but they are not from the sports pool. So in many organizations, sports team has been cut down, and it happened not just during this period, the last 3 months of lockdown, 4 months of lockdown, but even before. It's been happening since 2017. So the number of people covering sports have been on the decline. The sports is one of the industries that is booming in India and in the subcontinent, but the newsroom, the numbers in the newsroom have definitely been shrinking, and it's not just women, even the men have been knocked off. In fact, during the coronavirus pandemic, our editors felt that sports is the most dispensable area of journalism because there is no sports happening. So let sports people go. When they need to re-employ people, perhaps they will kind of open the doors, and they will open doors for young people, not people who are old enough and experienced in the profession. So I wouldn't say a very happy time for the industry. In fact, the industry needs to recover, and that's why I mentioned that the ones who come back in the work, in the labor force, the ones who come back and get re-employed will have to be multi-skilled. They can't just come in and say, well, I'm a good writer, or I'm a good anchor, or I can do good edits, but they have to do 4 or 5 functions together, because you see today technology has made all of us multi-skilled, and we need to employ that. We need to be multi-skilled to be either re-employed in our work in places, or even ask for a pay raise.
Thank you very much for this answer. And as I said, Katrina from Namibia, please prepare Kia Faith. This will be the last 2, because we must give our panelists the final words, and we promise to finish until 4 in European time. So last 2 questions from Katrina from Namibia and Kia Faith from Uganda. First, Katrina, or opinion, not question. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for the panelists and everybody. I'm Katrina from Namibia. I'm the sports producer, reporter at the National Broadcaster. I really appreciate this opportunity that was granted to me. As Christine and Rika said, one can say that you should have hunger for this productions that you are doing. You should have hunger for our field. And over the years, I have built up trust from many people in my industry. And I had also the privilege of having mentors in my field, and that's what led to who I am today. And I'm so grateful for my male mentors. It was not female, but male who groomed me over the years. So my word of encouragement is to other female journalists: reach out to many people as possible, people in your field that have been in the field, and learn from them. Have hunger for what you are doing, and you will prevail. I had the opportunity, even though I was the only female sports journalist at this desk, I had the opportunity to cover the All-African Games in Maputo. I also had the opportunity to cover the New Delhi, also the past Olympics in Rio. I had the opportunity to do that. Why? Because I proved myself that women can do as equally as men. Although my pay is not equal to them, as today's topic is about the pay gap, I did not look at the pay gap, and I did not look at what am I going to get, but the experience that I got, nobody will take it away from me. All those experiences, being at the stadium, at the opening ceremony, and so on. So I'll just encourage more women to come up and do what you love, and eventually it will pay off. Also, in Namibia, we don't have an association as such, Sports Journalists Association. I only know about 2 more female journalists. And so I am now in the process to create something of that sort, just to bring my male and female sports journalists together to start up an association. And thank you. I really learned a lot from this.
Thank you very much, and very nice
Thank you.
words that you want to make a National Sport Journalist Association. Please, you have our support in any way. You can write me an email in any time you want. The last from you is Kai from Uganda, and then we will have the last words from all our 4 panelists. Kai from Uganda.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Faith Kiai from Uganda. Good day to all, and I'm thankful to the AIPS for this opportunity. The meetings have been very enlightening. One thing I do want to touch on is that back home here in Uganda, there's been like a spike in the number of female reporters, but of course, for many of us, you're always going to find some roadblocks, and those roadblocks, for instance, they may include things like lack of trust from, say, subjects that we interview and all these things. And in one way or the other, these things may contribute to the maybe pay gap. But in actual sense, the organization I do work for, there's like a flat fee that they pay for, say, freelancers and all these things. So your problem may come from maybe people who are not necessarily open-minded and think women can report and all those things. But of course, with time, I think these are things that are going to change. My question to the panel is, especially the female sports reporters, at which point, or how did you, for instance, in the start, how did you manage to, put the pushback from like society, people you are interviewing, how did you manage to push back and, get to a point where you are now maybe an opinion leader in whichever, part of the industry you are working in? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Faith. I'm pretty sure that in the last words of every panelist will be a part of an answer to your question. So let's start with Christine Brennan. She is prepared to give you and to all of us a final touch to this seminar. Please, Christine, something about 3 minutes will be perfect.
Perfect. Well, thank you, and how fun. I mean, I marvel at this, don't you? Here we are, all of us around the world connected. Maybe this is the best thing about the pandemic. Maybe the only really good thing about the pandemic is the opportunity to be, Roz in Australia. Here I am in America, in Washington, D.C. It's all different hours. People probably want to go to bed. I'm just getting up and starting the day. So it makes you feel great about the world and that we're all together. So I really think it's just fabulous. And thank you again to Johnny and of course, all of you at AIPS. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you want something, go for it. And I know this sounds very simple, and I know some of the things I say might sound too optimistic. Well, I plead guilty to being too optimistic. You can do it. You will succeed. If you want this and you want to work hard, it will happen for you. I absolutely guarantee it. May not be exactly what you pictured. I don't know all about that, but you can go for it. I do think social media can be terrible. So a strong suggestion is not to read your mentions on Twitter. If you write something controversial or if you say something controversial, have a friend, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband, a wife, someone out there, your brother, your sister, go through your mentions and get rid of all those people, block them, really. Because I don't want to have those people drag you down for one moment of your beautiful life. And Lord knows, even someone like me, you get it, I block them, but it can stop you in your tracks, and I don't want that. So don't let social media get to you, and get it out of your life. Use the good parts of social media, put something on Twitter, leave. Don't have someone else go through those mentions. I know it's hard, but do that. And, I laugh people say, oh, are you offended by something or whatever? And I say, you know, if I was offendable, I'm not sure if that's easy to translate, sorry. If I took offense, if things bothered me, I would have been hiding under a bed in 1982 and never gotten out of that bed. And I'm saying because I'm so strong, I'm saying it because we make choices and choose happiness, and don't let them get to you. If you want it, go for it with all your heart and soul.
Thank you very much, Christine. And I'm pretty sure that Rosalind Morris is agree with you. Rosalind, your final words?
Yeah, that was great, Christine. I probably will go from an AIPS point of view here, answering to Chidibe from Nigeria. What I was trying to say was, I don't think that a specific award for women does anything to advance women in sports media or in any other industry for that matter. We have our own awards. Men and women can apply equally. We've had a lot of female winners. We've had a lot of male winners. You know, that's it. I really don't think a specific award for women is a great idea. Also, you mentioned a great subject is that female journalists being given the opportunity to take part in events such as an Olympics or a FIFA World Cup or a Special Olympics, something similar to that. Well, AIPS has a young reporter program that I was very much part of establishing, and we've given the opportunity for many, many, many young women like yourself, even from Nigeria. There's one girl, Chibogu, from Nigeria, who's now working in the AIPS office. Through your national association, if you hear that there's a young reporter program happening, you can apply to become one of our young reporters. We've had a young reporter program at the Women's World Cup in France, in the Under-17 Women's World Cups in Azerbaijan and other countries. We've been to the Olympics. We've been to the Special Olympics. We've been to the Euro. You know, these opportunities are there for you to grab with both hands. There are other young reporter programs as well. The IOC does one. But the AIPS one is really wonderful, and it's been the stepping stone and the launch point for not just young female journalists, but males as well. Been very proud of that, and I know Johnny's very proud of that. So, you know, one way of getting out and about and getting to an international event when you might not be there in your career yet is to apply for our Young Reporter program.
Thank you very much, Rose, and thank you for reminding us for this Young Reporter program. We already had it during Corona. Then I would ask, I see Rika is ready. Rika, your final words. What do you think about this seminar? Did you learn something?
Well, yes, it was really enlightening for me, and to hear so many voices across continents. In the end, I would just like to say a couple of things. One, and essentially it's to my tribe, to all the lovely women out there who are aspiring to be sports journalists, that make confidence your middle name. If you have decided to do something, go for it, be confident about it. The other thing that I have done through my career all my life is updated myself, gathered the knowledge gathered the knowledge that is available, and that is available from my male colleagues, from my female colleagues, and never be resistant to learning. You can even learn from the man on the street. So learn every day. Be confident about what you're doing, and you have to be the best man for the job. And you have to present your best face. There may be happy days, there may be unhappy days, but you have to. And in the words of one of my most admired journalists, one of the journalists that I admire, Tracy Holmes, you have to wear your best pair of heels to be in the man's world and to be seen with the grays. You have to wear your highest pair of heels and be alongside them. Have your confidence, have the knowledge to be able to execute what you wish to execute. Get across to people who think you might get help from. Never stop short of asking for help, in whatever form that you need. There are so many of us in the pool willing to extend our knowledge, the opportunity that we have in terms of today. The world is flat. Today you can reach out to anyone that you want to gain information, access to any kind of thing. And particularly the times of coronavirus is challenging for all of us. I know so many of my colleagues, so many of my friends have lost jobs at this time, and they are sitting, they are actually sitting at home right now, and I believe a few of them are also watching this simulcast across the globe, and they're saying that they want to come back to the profession. They're waiting for the right moment, they're waiting for the right opportunity. Some of them are going through depression, but we can't be depressed and lose out on opportunities. We have to smile, we have to look for the opportunities, we have to bounce back. So every time there is a pushback, think of the moment when you can strike back, when you can bounce back and strike when the iron is hot.
Rika, thank you very much for your words and for your smile. This is a very, very good sentence, to have a smile always on your face. Very, very good. Now Leila is with us. Leila, your final words?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. I speak Arabic.
Of course.
Thank you. في الأخير أريد أن أقول شيئا مهما جدا، هو أنه أولا أسأل الله أن يرفع هذا الوباء كورونا، لأنه أعاق عمل المرأة بصفة خاصة، الإعلامية في الملاعب وفي كل التغطيات الرياضية. ثانيا أشكر أيضا روزالين، أشكر كريستين لكل ما قدموه في هذه الجلسة، لأننا نبقى نتعلم منهم دائما. وأسأل القائمين في العالم وليس فقط في الدول العربية على الرياضة وعلى الإعلام الرياضي وأصحاب القرار أن تكون هناك قرارات حقيقية فاعلة، بعيدا عن ربما الهرج الحديث الكبير عن كلمة المساواة، لأن اليوم الأمر ليس المشكل في المساواة، الأمر اليوم في حقوق المرأة التي يجب أن يكتبها التاريخ. أشكر كل من ساعدنا نحن كنساء في بلوغ هذا العمل وتحقيقه والدخول إليه. أشكر أيضا التلفزيون الجزائري الذي أبقى محظوظة أنني أنتمي إليه وساعدني كثيرا. وفي الأخير أسأل الرجل أن يساند فعلا المرأة في مجالها والمرأة الإعلامية الرياضية. شكرا لكم جزيلا وفخر أنني معكم.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being a panelist in this seminar. All of you panelists or just listeners, you are always welcome to send your articles to web of AIPS, and please do it as soon as possible on this team or any other team. And for the end of this very good seminar, Mr. President, Johnny Merla.
Thank you to everybody. I would like also ask you one favor. The people that are not on video now, can please come on video so we can share also the light of the eyes, because it's important sometimes to see the person that is behind the screen, and if not, if we begin to speak with the black screen, and it's not so exciting. I think that if we can look each other, it's a very good thing. I think that today was very interesting, as usual, in this seminar, because the first two MEC were very good. Now we are waiting the last one regarding the gender backlash, that is very delicate matter. And I hope that all of you will be with us. And I think that we are making really very good new thing. And this is very important. It's very important because the number of people, the number of countries that are involved in this seminar are already a big success. It is the first time that we are working on this matter regarding women, and I think that I can tell you that I am satisfied. And I tell you that in the future we will study something new. But some advice has to come also from you. Because we have not to wait, as all the panelists have said today. The most important is to have idea, to propose. And so I'm waiting also your proposal. And I tell you, see you in 2 days, in 48 hours, we will be again together for the last lap. The last lap in this competition that is very important for the future of this women sport journalism. Thank you very much to everybody. Bye.
And bye-bye, everybody.
Ciao.